All these places exist in Japan. Something about actually visiting them, that this is real.
And I'm gonna take a photo of every single location I find.
One of the most underlooked elements in anime is its setting. And what if I told you there was this place in the world where 90% of anime had real life locations you could literally go visit in real life? There's no trick here. It's Japan. I made a list of every single anime and manga I loved and took a 3-week trip to Japan to find their real life counterparts. I think seeing these places with my own eyes will give me more clarity and context to the inner mind of the creators of the mangas that made them and make me appreciate that work that much more. I've seen people hit 1, maybe 2 spots on their trip, but what I'm about to do has never been done before. Okay. Some places were cool and some were kind of ass, I can't lie. But every photo I took had its own story. So sit back, relax, because these are some of them stories right now. With the first story being an anime about
I've never felt like some little boy. I've never felt like thinking this will last forever.
Okay, guy, I already know I'm cheating. I know it's not originally an anime, it's a game, but fuck you, it's my video. Persona 5. From the first location alone, I could tell this trip was going to be trippy because these artists went above and beyond to make their content one-to-one to the actual location. Guy, I kept thinking to myself, I've walked on these streets before. I've eaten at these restaurants. I've paid for these maid service. On a deeper note, I think setting the game up in Tokyo is pretty befitting because although I romanticize where I was,
The faces I saw from the locals told a completely different story of the country.
more than most, I think Japan has a deep culture of just being pushed into a traditional standard line of work with no avenue for different careers like the arts or humanities. Okay, but then it goes all the way to the extremely and unhealthy work-life balance some of these be having.
I'm so depressed.
It was more than once where I saw a salaryman just passed out on the floor, probably drunk out of his mind to numb a 13-hour workday. And now you're probably thinking, how does this play into Persona? The bosses in Persona 5 reflect some of these issues I saw with my own eyes. These developers probably know a person in power who's untouchable
And abuses the people lower than him.
a con man who viciously puts people in debt and ruins lives. Or get this, a big CEO in charge of a multi-million-dollar business subjecting his employees to the worst living conditions ever seen to man while they make huge profit margins financially and politically. Guy, look, I know these things aren't exclusive to Japan, but never have I seen a country with such a strong dogma in its people.
So it only makes sense that the heroes of Persona 5 are the ones who fight against the status quo.
They are quite literally the SJWs of Japan. They fight to be who they really are beneath the masks, to break free from the chains of society. And when they see others abused and exploited by the twisted and distorted hearts of the powerful, they dress up in their leather punk get-ups and they steal their hearts.
We are the Phantom Thieves, here to take your bride.
Guy, what? And when it's a nighttime, I actually saw a more lively Japan. People loosen up and show their real faces. So that's why it makes sense to name this photo after the alternate universe in the game, the Metaverse. This photo means more to me than you'll ever know. Until you see this. I'm obsessed with Vagabond. The first time I read it, I made it my personality for a month. Even now, I'm geeking that I'm the same age as Musashi was when he was in his doomer phase. There's this place in Kyoto where they film old Edo period movies. Tourists can walk around these streets wearing iconic Japanese outfits, and to my look, they had it. The iconic black Musashi kimono with 2 katanas at the side. We took so many photos, but the one I really wanted to do was Musashi's prayer. This panel is Musashi thanking life for the small coincidences that allowed him to get to this point. So many times he almost died in battle, but he survived and grew as a person. Although not the same, failing a year in college was my breaking point, feeling like I had hit rock bottom. But it was these exact experiences that allowed me to take this trip to Japan. For me, this panel was the beginning of Musashi tapping into something other than an obsession to be the strongest. He's grateful for the life he's lived up to this point. And I say all this deep philosophical shit so you allow me to admit that I can't lie, the best part of that day was just walking around with 2 swords as a badass. I can't lie, that shit was too cool. is probably the weirdest thing we did in Japan. This is bar in Tokyo where you get served drinks by a bunch of muscle mommies. That's the name. I'm not even kidding. You take pictures and they slap you. We went to that place, and I'll speak on that later in the video, but to bring balance back to the universe, I had to go to the male equivalent in Kyoto, the macho bar. To say I was embarrassed was an understatement. They carry you to your seats. Every drink they make is squeezed with their muscles. And guy, they only know a little English, so they just be screaming things randomly.
I'm Hughesy!
But through talking to them, I found out we had so much in common. Manga, anime, games. We were three topless men discussing One Piece theories. The main bartender even looked like Macho from How Many Dumbbells Can You Lift? As the night went on, I felt myself loosening up, and man, I even got involved in their challenges. We even hit the iconic Full Metal Alchemist handshake. Guy, okay, I'll admit, on the outside, it looked pretty weird, but I did not care. I was with the boys. It's funny how men bond over stuff like anime, games, sports, cars so quickly, but when a nigga says they're depressed, people dodge that guy like the bubonic plague. It's weird. Anyway, speaking of cars, Tokyo, the epicenter for seeing the flashiest cars in the world, and where Inital D was made, of course. Only 40 minutes from Tokyo was this place called Daikoku, which had a huge parking lot of like 500 spaces the locals use for big ass car meets. The problem was, I had the worst sickness of my entire life, and I needed rest. But this is our only chance, because we were leaving the city in like 7 hours. I had to be there. I had to. So I went, and I kid you not, the vibrations of the engines cured my sickness. Never have I seen so much money in one place. The people were so happy to speak to us, showing off their modded cars, from the expensive muscle cars to the vintage old Toyota Sprinters. And it wasn't just a measuring contest to see who had the most expensive car. This was just a safe place that people go to if you eat, sleep, and breathe cars. I don't even know shit about cars, but I do know I'm out of culture when I see one. Yeah, this car rap was the kind of stuff you see only in memes. But the police came. They shut the whole shit down so quickly. But I didn't give up. Just before we left, I got my photo. As mentioned before, at this point of the trip, I was sick and tired. In order to get every location on the list, I would have to travel back and forth from city to city because I wasn't trying to hold up the group. I was doing this relatively solo. Guy, and I wasn't doing myself any favors because straight after the car meet,
Nightmares come true. Here's not a man again.
My voice is gone, man.
then I slept for 30 minutes and headed out to the next location at 6:30 a.m. What is wrong with me? Which coincidentally is probably around the same time a certain character wakes up early in the morning to do their road work. Up north of Tokyo is JB's Sports Boxing Gym, the gym owned by George Morikawa, the creator of Hajime no Ippo. Look, the outside seemed ordinary, but everything on the inside told 1,000 different stories. As a naturally competitive person, I loved seeing Ippo choose boxing at first just as a way to gain confidence, to fully developing a desire to compete and to become strong. It was this guy's guts and fighting spirit that made him a great boxer. And just from the outside of the gym, you can see the bronze statue of the other main character, Takamura.
I has titties from up here. God damn.
One of the funniest scenes in the manga is when Takamura buys the ugly statue as an ego boost to show off. Literal piece of shit. The roof would obviously be off limits. But when I spoke to the lady at the counter just how much I loved Hajime no Ippo and how much the boxing just meant to me, this is not how I might have lied that I was also a boxer as well, I got to see my boy. They even put me on their Twitter. On top of the pics I've already shown, I've already gotten a dozen others. But, you know, everything has its ups and downs. And since I've shown you the good photos, you know, let's talk about the ones. Ghibli Park. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's a theme park to celebrate the animation studio Ghibli that gave us movies like Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, and so many others. I'm not taking that away from that, okay? And maybe it was the fatigue coupled with the joint 6-hour train ride to Nagoya. The place was kind of mid. You weren't even allowed to take photos. The whole park can be done in like an hour. And there was this cool mini exclusive screening we watched, but like there was no English subtitles. So what the And I know how ignorant and Western I sound going to Japan expecting subtitles everywhere, but seeing as how we stayed up until 5 a.m. for these tickets in the first place, I was expecting a little bit more than a glorified whatever the that was. We were, however, allowed to take a photo of the cat bus from Totoro, so there's the silver lining. Due to the fatigue from the last 24 hours, guy, I can't lie, I don't even remember posing for this. I'm giving this a solid C tier. The merch was cool though, and I got this plane from Nausicaa Valley. So, yeah. You have to build it yourself? Oh, hardly. I'm gonna be real with you boys. On top of the already packed itinerary in the day, finding time at the crack of dawn or late at night to complete this challenge, it was starting to feel like a suicide mission. I still had 25 spots to go to with an estimated 30 hours commuting in between, and every day was 30 degrees weather, which I'm not used to because I'm Irish, and the shortest I walked throughout the whole trip was 25,000 steps. So to say I was tired and hungry and fatigued is an understatement. I started to question why I even wanted to do this in the first place. This was supposed to be a vacation, not a pilgrimage. Plus, I can't lie, I also realized there was an element of this whole trip that I was like romanticizing way too much of the country than I wanted to admit. And I was obsessed with having like this anime moment every place I went to, which is not only really cringe, but you know, kind of toxic. And it didn't let me enjoy certain places unless it was something mind-boggling, crazy, ADHD, colors flying everywhere. Wow, this is Japan I saw from TikTok. You know, I made a decision. With 8 days left in Japan, I decided to cut down the locations from 25 to 7. With this, I could catch up on sleep and not want to rope myself. And I also made a mental promise to let things flow. And what better location to have this mentality than this place? I'm in this remote town in Japan and I'm instantly regretting it. I'm there to visit this bridge where the anime I saw in Voice was set. 10 out of 10 movie, by the way. The actual town itself is like even more boring than your regular town. Very different from the rest of my trip. And on top of that, it was a 40-minute walk from the station to the bridge. At least it felt like 40. I got sidetracked a lot, okay? And so I'm walking to the bridge and I'm seeing builders work and mom cycling with their groceries. And something just told me to just take off my headphones and just listen to the silence. In the anime, they use silence to add weight to a scene. I portray to you at times it's better just to, you know, shut up and take information around you another way. Might be a metaphor for sign language, I don't know. This town made me just stop the noise in my head and just soak in where I was. And when I finally got to the bridge, I just sat there and watched the fish and watched people feed the fish. I felt a wave of peacefulness just flow right through me. Something I hadn't felt the entire trip. You know, you kind of just forget about the hustle and bustle of city life. And you just kind of have time to your thoughts, which is kind of scary. But, you know, watching the river flow by while thinking and shit, you know, it's pretty sick. I can't lie. Look, it wouldn't be Japan if we didn't go Akihabara. Okay, so listen, before I show you any more footage, I want to let you know, I didn't realize how openly degenerate this country is. When we get to this district, I smelt the faint odor of despair from people gambling. I could hear the distant calls of maids, young and old, ushering salarymen to spend their quality time, and I could faintly feel once you stepped into this place, no one had shame. And if no one has shame, then what power does God have over these heathens? I still don't know how to feel about this photo. Muscle bars. To my knowledge, exclusively only in Japan. And for a price, you can get served by these yoked up servers and, you know, some of the services on the side. You've seen the macho male bar.
Well, we also went to the female muscle bar in Ikeburo.
And you can probably guess what went down. We had to do chest presses for drinks in the bar. We got carried, smacked, juices, liquids, got sprayed, got flying everywhere.
And guy, these girls are fucking henchmen.
I don't know if I'm the same man going in that I was going out. 100 days before the trip,
I trained every single day for this one night.
Something's awakened in me.
I mean, this will forever be solidified as the greatest moment in the whole group. And we all swore that we'd never speak of that night ever again.
Until now.
Okay, that's most of the degenerate stuff out the way. Most of it. Let's move on to something a little bit more wholesome with the next story.
Definitely the most anime moment while we are in Japan. At the end of June, there's this annual Yukata festival in Himeji. It was the whole reason we chose to travel during that month. We had expectations of everyone wearing yukatas, food stalls, busy streets, and it did not disappoint. We got our own yukatas and explored the city as hundreds of people came out to celebrate.
Guy, I even got my own interview because my black was dripped out with my yukata, and I know they wanted to spread that I love Japan propaganda coming from a black male, you know what I'm saying?
We even found this bar where if you beat the bartender in a game of Smash, you get drinks for free. Guy, I did not beat him, okay? It is in fact true that Asian servers are way more comp than EU servers.
A local told me the festival goes back almost 260 years when the Lord of Himeji Castle wanted to celebrate a new shrine in the area, but the people didn't have the time or the money to come out in traditional kimonos.
And back then, yukatas were literally only used for hot springs and were banned to wear in public. And this absolute mad lad just says, "F it, let them wear yukatas."
These photos sometimes comes off as ordinary, but the memories behind them are priceless. Okay, look. I haven't been real with you this whole video. There actually was a second experience when it came to looking at the persona spots. Where I really wanted to go was the main headquarters of the player, right to a place in the game called Cafe LeBlanc. Except when I got there, there was no Cafe LeBlanc. But there was Kenta. He's the restaurant owner of where Cafe LeBlanc is supposed to be in real life. Since the game's come out, hundreds of fans come in thinking his restaurant's Cafe LeBlanc, and each time, he doesn't shoot them away. He makes them a meal and talks to them. Guy, I must have spent 4 hours there. We talked about everything.
Real name, you have a long name?
Do you want me to say it?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Are you ready?
Go.
Agdenuba, Oluwamayowa, Olamide, Tiwatayo, Gregory Olu.
You said,
Main one, Mayowa. It means God gives joy. Kenta.
Kenta means healthy fat.
Healthy
Fat.
fat.
In Persona 5, the game's motto is taking your time. Even doing menial day-to-day tasks or seeing random people in the game can have a huge difference. There's a 20-year age gap between us, but our childhoods are 1 to 1.
It seems like we all used to hide our games under the pillow when our parents came.
Whether it was my Nintendo DS or Kenta's Game Boy.
The most genuine conversation I had in the entire trip.
When I left, I had wished I had stayed longer. So, on my last day, just before I went to my flight, I had to see him again.
The biggest surprise in Japan was this photo. In literally every anime, there's a scenic location the character always goes to when they want to think, train, or make some outlandish promise. You see it yourself. That very common hill with a walkway on top, usually beside a river, and the Tama River in Tokyo was the closest thing I could find to look like this. Actually, it's the same place Mikey and Takemichi had their little heart-to-heart, so I was expecting lush green grass and beautiful rivers.
Guy, look at this. This is what I thought I was going to get. And then this is what I actually got.
say you swear to God.
Guy, all you can do is laugh. Because I took a 2-hour bullet train from Kyoto to Tokyo and then another 1-hour train on the subway to get there. Look, and I know it can look a lot more beautiful. It was just unlucky with the timing I went, and it was just cut grass. It just wasn't a good look. And the only thing that saved the day was playing some Nujabes, picking a random direction to walk in, and just having fun with it. Honestly, forgot about the letdown after 5 minutes of walking. Your boy was vibing, and I found a cool spot to just watch the city go by. So yeah, you can kind of say that that day was a good day. The final and best photo I took in all my photos in Japan. And the story behind it is a lesson for life I will always remember. I didn't know I'd be this into this, but I was. I was in this area in Tokyo called Shimokitazawa with only one goal: to visit Starry, the underground music venue that BOYZ The Rock was based on. And pretty quickly I got my photo of the entrance. Funny enough, it's called Shelter, not Starry in real life. But I saw a sign that made me feel really bad. Thousands of BOYZ fans probably come here daily and don't actually support the musicians. But I don't speak Japanese and rock music really isn't my thing. So I had a choice on whether to go into this intimidating cellar and pay for tickets or just call it quits and move on to the next location. But I figured this is exactly how BOYZ would react and her self-conscious ass would think. I got in and that shit wild. The venue was identical to the anime. The acts were insanely good, and the crowd, oh my god. Before I knew it, I was getting sucked into the magic and became another fan, just enjoying the night. Something about the music just makes you move in unison with everyone else, just having a good time, man. Which is why I want to call this photo Punk Hive Mind. My last day in Japan, 8:45 p.m. I had done it. I had gone to every anime location in Japan in 21 days, kind of. A month of my life with triumphs and losses sprinkled in with copious amounts of nostalgia and joy. And although I lost the constant romanticization halfway through, it was still unreal exploring the country that made so many of my shows from my childhood. I'm reminded that above everything else, what I cherished the most on this trip was the conversations I was able to have because of this challenge. Experiencing these locations only humanized these mangakas for me. They're just normal people who live in normal towns and have something to say with their stories. They want to push an overarching theme with relatable thoughts within the characters of these made-up universes, which in my experience has overall been just positive. Once I got out of my own way, me and the boys had the best times of our lives. And it's this very philosophy that's praised and constantly brought up in anime manga: a change in perspective. And as much as I condemn the capitalistic manipulative nature of the anime/manga industry, it's the passion these mangakas put in their work that will always bring me back despite everything else. These characters may not be real, but the lived experiences of these creators are, and the passion they write onto paper is infectious, a fire getting passed from the next person who reads, and so on and so forth. And I think that's sick, man. It's this silent connectivity is the reason why I'll never put my last manga down, or I'll never have watched my last anime ending. To conclude, this challenge taught me how to let life just flow and not sweat the small stuff. And I'm gonna cringe for the first time in this video because I want to end off with this vagabond quote: "Preoccupied with a single leaf, you'll miss the tree. Preoccupied with a single tree, and you'll miss the entire forest."
なんとなく生きてんじゃないですか。迷ってんじゃないですか。生き生きしたい。簡単ですよ。過去のことを思っちゃダメだよ。なんであんなことしたんだろうって怒りに変わってくるから。未来のことも思っちゃダメ。大丈夫かな。ああ、不安になってくるでしょ。ならば一生懸命一つのところに命をかける。そうだ。今ここを生きていけばみんな生き生きするぞ。